The member for Mildura.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And my committee report today is on the Economy and Infrastructure Committee's inquiry into the impact of road safety behaviours on vulnerable road users. It's important to note, I think, that, and I've said this many times in this place, that the one thing that my office deals with the most are complaints about roads, intersections, potholes, on regional and remote rural roads mostly, and obviously there's confusion with constituents around who manages what roads, what's a council road, what's a state road. Usually the federal roads are, I would hope to most, pretty obvious, but not always. So my focus today is on those vulnerable road users, because particularly out in remote and rural areas around the Great Northwest, or even over in the East Gippsland, there's people, and there are sections throughout this report, in fact, that talk about cyclists and motorbikes, of which I have been, and still am, to a point, both of these. And there is a certain level of vulnerability. In fact, there is a very large aspect of vulnerability, to the point where it was interesting while I was reading section 4.2, and bike riders must be viewed as legitimate road users. I kind of had to giggle at that, and with respect, well, of course bike riders are legitimate road users, but in some cases, in regional areas that have a high heavy vehicle traffic load on very small, narrow roads with crumbling shoulders, it's almost like those cyclists and bike users become target practice for some truck drivers and for some motorists. And it gets back to the section 2 and section 2.1.1, in fact, that drivers post-COVID have become impatient. They've become aggressive. When you're on a bike, and I in fact don't cycle anymore, I was part of a bicycle users group, the ones that we get dressed in lycra and go for a coffee afterwards, or a milkshake. I know, beautiful. Sorry for that visual, I apologise, member for Gippsland East. I did look fabulous, in fact, an all-in-one, and would go and do it on mornings like this, but I won't do it anymore. Because it's member for Gippsland East has in fact donned a lycra leotard, I believe, but in the name of charity, not for enjoyment. So, however, my point is, both. Does it for enjoyment, not the enjoyment of others, I can assure you. But my point is that it is, I don't cycle anymore on country roads simply because it's become too unsafe. And being a mother to 2 children, 2 stepchildren, the risk is simply too high. Cyclists are vulnerable, not only on city roads, but as the report states, regional roads have become very, very dangerous. And it's because of the impact that heavy vehicles, and we're not just talking about road trains anymore, I had this discussion yesterday, we are talking about B quads. We're talking about A doubles on these very narrow roads that are crumbling, that have potholes, and the smallest little thing can become a really big hazard for a cyclist and a motorbike rider, in fact. Something as small as a puddle can put you in hospital for a week with broken ribs and severe concussion. Another thing I've learnt through lived experience. But when we talk about regional roads, and of course the report does talk about the vulnerability of regional road users in terms of how vulnerable we are with road use. And I think, there are many recommendations within the report on how this can all be addressed, and action on the Victorian cycling strategy would be one of the findings, and the recommendations in there quite actually a fascinating read. And the member for Laverton's quite right when she says some of these reports are actually quite dry, but this is actually a very good and interesting read, particularly from the point of view of a cyclist, of a motorcyclist, because it is really dangerous for us out there, not to mention the conditions of the road. And we know that over 90% of roads in Victoria are poor or very poor condition. And there's actually, I give awards around my electorate as to which one is worse, which one you'd be more likely to become airborne on. The list goes on and on.